Hey cats, it's Ed, Eddbud here. I've got an initial review for fans of the favourite Floatride Energy series, the 5th iteration, the Floatride Energy 5. Does this model still supply the best running shoe value money can buy? Let's take a gander. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and click the bell below for notifications. It really does help the channel out if you're enjoying the video to give it a thumbs up like and to share it with your running buddies, of course. Dankeschön. Today I'm looking at the Floatride Energy 5 from Reebok. This is a shoe that Reebok have fired over to me for review, but they won't be vetting my views before my valued viewers get to see them. This new version of the Floatride Energy series comes in at 294 grams or 10.4 ounces in my UK 11 US size 12. That's about 10 grams heavier than the V4, though I think I know where the extra weight is in the shoe. I've got a Sure A hardness rating here of 25 for the midsole material. That makes the shoe a little bit softer than the average score that I've got of about 28. Widest area in the forefoot there, 11.5 centimeters and 9.5 centimeters in the heel. So it's pretty much exactly the dimensions that you'll find in the Energy 4 from last year. When I tested out the other Floatride foam shoes from Reebok, they came in at around about 27 or 28 on that Sure hardness scale. So this one is a touch softer. You may not have the sensitivity in your feet to feel that very slight difference though. I'd say that tongue in cheek. In terms of the stack height, I've got about 35 millimeters here in the heel and about 28 millimeters in the forefoot. Comparing that up against the Energy 4, I think that was about 34 millimeters in the heel and about 26 up front. I would suggest that the Energy 5 is probably one of the most true to size Reebok shoes that I've tested out for some time. I think in the Energy 4 you probably could have gone down half a size. It was a little long. This one's pretty much true to size. The steely blue, cloud white and smash orange colourway is available right now over at Reebok for 85 Earth credits. Though I'm pretty sure within about 10 seconds you can probably find some sort of code to reduce that price to a slightly more easier to stomach sort of level. We'll start with the upper first. So certainly quite the switch up from the Energy 4 that had a very thin mesh upper. This feels a little bit thicker to me, certainly around the toe box area. Just a bit more conforming around the foot. There was a lot of excess sort of material on the Energy 4. I think the toe box here isn't perhaps quite as roomy, certainly in a good way for me. There's quite a bit of reinforcement here, I think in a bid to try and keep that upper material away from the toes. Classic booty-like gusseted construction here with that tongue adjoined to the sort of inner material within the shoe. And there's vastly more padding here in the tongue as well. The tongue on the Energy 4 was pretty thin really. Did get a little bit of kind of lace pressure there. This one is quite a beefy tongue construction on the Energy 5. I mean, you could say that the Energy 4 tongue padding was just a little bit too thin for a daily shoe. I think they've pretty much got it just about right here in the Energy 5. I do really like this sort of low profile area around the ankle. Does remind me quite a bit of the Nike Pegasus 35. That had a beautiful sort of profile around the actual ankle and the heel, that flare there as well, really does remind me of that shoe. I think it looks great as well, the actual profile of this one. Probably reasonable to wear as a casual shoe. You know, there's some running shoes that just look really stupid if you wear them casually. You know, something like the Invincible run, it just kind of looks weird. Maybe not so much the latest version, but certainly the V1 and 2 just look like clown shoes. Upper's feeling a little less pointed, I guess, from the sort of mid to forefoot area. I found the lockdowns pretty good if you just cinch the laces up. Used a runner's knot and also tried it without one too, and both times I got a great lockdown. I think it's due to that extra padding in the tongue. The laces included here are those flatter, sort of less flexible ones, and they seem to do the trick just fine. I think if you really enjoyed the Energy 4 and the very light sort of airy upper, this is going to be a little bit different. It does feel like Reebok are trying to move this shoe into the same category as Nike's Pegasus, you know, one of those common daily type running shoes. Certainly perhaps not one for long distance with that lower stack, but I do think I prefer the upper on the Energy 4, aside from the tongue. There's just quite a bit more material here and you can feel that around the foot. It's quite present. I'll give this an initial upper score of 2.8 out of 3.
Midsole now.
So as I mentioned, the Floatride foam in here is coming in a little bit softer. It's only by a few points, but it's definitely softer. I've done some measurements like all over the shoe and it's pretty consistent, to be honest. It does feel a little bit more like the stuff that we got in the Reebok Floatride Energy X. That partly hollowed out area of the midsole that you can see underfoot here does create a trampoline-like effect. Certainly a very usable sort of middle of the road midsole, this one. I don't think it's anything that people will pick up to run extreme pace. And it's certainly not a very slow, long-run shoe. Light and nimble enough for those daily miles, I suppose. Not so heavy or totally unwieldy that you couldn't use it for some faster reps if you wanted to. The biggest change here, though, is that introduction of that torsion system here. I say torsion system, it's not the Adidas one, but it's certainly trying to do the same thing. There's like a plastic piece that runs right from here to round about here in the midsole. Sort of creeps up the edges and stretches into the sort of midfoot area a little bit. I believe it's mainly here to reduce that sort of twisting around the arch between like the heel and the forefoot. I do recall some people mentioning the Floatride foam in previous versions of the Energy series was a little bit too flexible. Maybe this is to help stabilize the foot strike for a few people without it being overly present or controlling. A little bit like the thing that you've got in the Adios 6 and 7. Very subtle, though I think it could benefit people that are wanting to do some pace work. There's a little bit of extra snap there that isn't in the previous versions. I think it's a valid inclusion, certainly considering that foam is just a little bit softer this time. I found on my initial miles that it's soft, and it's certainly forgiving, but I think the lower stack will firmly position it, no pun intended I suppose, as a daily offering. I don't think it's a high mileage shoe by any stretch. Just think that Floatride foam on its own is just a little bit too soft. So I'm going to give this one a 2.6 out of 3 for the midsole. Yeah, it's perfectly cushioned, but I feel it is a slightly more niche shoe now. Could be too soft for a few applications. Outsole now. So in terms of the outsole, very similar lugs to what's appeared on the last few versions of the Energy series. Reebok have switched up the directions of those lugs a little bit here. I found this system to be a very consistent one. It does the job in rain or shine, and it's reasonably durable as well, certainly in terms of the amount you're paying. So you will find we've got double the number of rubber cutouts here than we got in the Energy 4. I found I got a load of debris lodged in all of those cutouts over my initial runs. Little bits of stones and twigs and acorn shells. Those holes are just perfect for that type of stuff to get lodged in there. I am finding as well in terms of the outsole that this sort of plastic section here does change the ride a little bit. It does feel now when you kind of put your weight down onto the shoe that your heel is sinking into the floor, and so is your sort of forefoot area, but you've got that more rigid feeling in the arch, and you don't really get that in the Energy 4, so it's quite a different sort of ride. I mean, you may like that, you may want that extra stability that's here. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, so it's quite a change from the Energy 3 and 4 if you like those. I think grip's still on point, you're going to get some great durability out of this one. Don't see anything changing there. But certainly more of a rocker-like action now, certainly in the midfoot there. It's just a little bit more rigidity to it. I think in my daily shoes I seek sort of good grip, that's the main thing. So certainly ticking a lot of the boxes that I would normally want to tick. So I think I'll probably give this one a 2.7 out of 3 for the outsole after my initial runs. Only reduced really from the huge amount of debris that it's picked up, even after, you know, only a few miles. On to value now. I think perhaps those that have enjoyed the Energy series so far will perhaps be calling for a little bit of a change. They have tailored the midsole profile a little bit now, and it's always been a good sort of daily cruiser for those everyday miles. But I think the inclusion perhaps of some Floatride Plus in the forefoot or perhaps the heel could have sort of energized the ride a little bit. Maybe using that Pebax foam a little bit like Nike's Air units in the Pegasus. I think that would give the shoe a whole new vibe really, and perhaps open it up to some new uses. Just make it a more versatile offering. Maybe it might make the shoe a little bit lighter as well, who knows. I think for the retail price, or if you're able to pick it up with a discount, it's still one of the best value offerings out there for a daily running shoe. Perhaps if you're new to running, you want to pick something up to sort of enhance your hobby, then this could be right up your street. If you're finding perhaps the Nike or Adidas offerings a little bit too narrow in the forefoot, or you don't want to shell out those premium prices, then go for the Energy 5. I also think this shoe's a much better value offering than some of the stuff that you can get around about that price range from Nike or Adidas. Perhaps if you're put off from the higher price of something like the Asics Nova Blast 3 or the Puma Velocity Nitro 2, I think this one is perhaps the next shoe to go for. I wouldn't be surprised at all in the Energy 6 if Reebok do switch up that midsole foam a little bit, just to give it an additional advantage over some of the other models in that price point. Overall, so the changes I think might detract a little bit if you enjoyed the Energy 3 and 4. Still a top-notch offering though. I mean, the ride's different, but I wouldn't suggest it's hugely dissimilar. Still a value victor when you consider some of those super shoes are perhaps going to hit the £300 price point in 2023. I'll give it a 2.8 out of 3 for value after my initial runs. So if I've added the scores up correctly, we've got 10.9 out of 12 for the Floatride Energy 5 from Reebok. Have you been enjoying the Energy series? Are you going to pick up the Energy 5 soon? Let us know down in the comments. A musical interlude for you. Recently, I've had need to listen to a song that I really love called Danny Nedelko by Idols. Idols are a band from Bristol. Absolutely fantastic racket. Danny Nedelko is a song that's sort of all about loving people that you kind of live with and that are next door to you, and your neighbours, your brothers and your sisters. It's delivered with some real gusto, this one. There's some wild guitars. It sounds like they've kind of looped tiny little bits perhaps of the guitar playing, and there's some slamming drums and driving bass lines there. I think the general message there is that sort of anger and mistrust of other people leads to hatred, and that you should sort of consider that there's lots of people out there that are just sort of trying their best and trying to have a nice life. And I think we're very, very lucky here that we get to do that without sort of fear, people kind of trying to take that all away, I suppose. Go and have a listen to it. I think you'll get the message pretty quickly from this one. Fantastic track from Idols called Danny Nedelko. Thanks for tuning in, people. I really do appreciate it. If you've enjoyed today's video, hit that subscribe button, click the bell below for notifications. Also give this video a thumbs up, like, and share it with your running buddies. My name's Eddbud, and I'll be seeing you. Why don't you pick up some merch as well and help the channel out? Helps to keep the torrent of shoes sort of flowing in. You know it makes sense.